Hello everybody, we're about to start. I hope everyone's comfortable. At the present moment it doesn't appear we have everybody ready, but we will be starting in just a few moments. Or maybe even quicker actually. I've just got a notification that we are all ready to run, so please sit back and enjoy the programme of events.
Right, is this on? Testing 1, 2. Okay. Hi, this is Dave T, and I've been asked to film an introduction to my competition film, Visiting the West Somerset Railway. And no, this isn't working. Because for a start, it wasn't filmed in a studio, but on location. And the first draft edit was actually done here in a caravan, in a field with no mains electricity, which meant that all of this had to be recharged and powered by the sun. And there was also a very limited internet connection. I filmed it because I take every opportunity I can to create films and use each film as an opportunity to experiment, try new things, and basically do everything that my grandfather said would never work and see if actually it may do. It was filmed in a style that some people might describe as vlogging, and that involves a lot of talking to camera in public places, which is something I'm not really comfortable with, which is why I practice it as often as possible. Because my first boss once told me that people buy from people. So if you're trying to tell a story, it makes sense to talk to your audience directly. It was filmed on a Canon DSLR with a heavy lens and an even heavier monopod, and also a mini tripod, and the sound was recorded using wireless lav microphones. In total, I took more than 150 different clips to keep it visually interesting, and there's some time ramping in places to match more than just the cuts to the beat. Also, I tried to make sure that there was movement in most shots, because it is about filmmaking, not photography after all. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the film, I'll ask you to like and subscribe. Now that's because I made this film for YouTube, because filmmaking, to me at least, is about communicating with an audience. And to do that, you need to get yourself an audience. So anyway, I hope you like it. That last comment was a reference to liking on YouTube, do you think they'll get it? No? No, neither do I. Right, it's Dave T here, and we're at Minehead on the West Somerset Railway, and we're going to try and catch the train all the way up to Bishop's Lydiard. So have a quick look around. We're waiting for the train to go off in about half an hour, so we'll look around the station here and then hopefully catch a steam train. So we've left Minehead and we're heading up to Bishop's Lydiard, which is about 1 hour and 25 minutes with 8 stops on the way. We bought a rover ticket for £22, which means we can actually jump off and on at any station, and there's 8 stops actually along the way. And when we get there, we'll grab a bite to eat at a cafe and catch the next train back, which will be in about 45 minutes to an hour. So we've just arrived here at Bishop's Lydiard. We've got about an hour before our train departs back to Minehead, which is plenty of time to have a look around. And apparently somewhere here there is a model railway. And the museum has this beautifully restored first-class Victorian GWR sleeping carriage. Upstairs in the museum I found Gauge Junction, which is the Gauge Museum's model railway. So the train's about to depart back to Minehead, and we're likely to stop off along the way at a couple of different stops, and that's really a nice feature of this heritage railway, in that you can actually use it as it was intended, which is to actually go to different places. So we're planning to stop off at the seaside village of Watchet, which has a small harbour that you can actually see from the train on the way past. And possibly also stop off at the medieval village of Dunster, which has numerous tea rooms and small shops, as well as, of course, Dunster Castle. Hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and if you have, then please hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more videos that I do, then also please consider subscribing to my channel. As always, most of all, thanks for watching.
Chairman Barry, I wasn't expecting you, I was just gardening. 2 seconds. Can't be too careful. Hi, I wasn't expecting it. Thanks very much. I shall sterilise this and treasure it. Thank you very much.
In 2019, the Colchester Filmmakers Club summer project was to create a film of less than 5 minutes about any aspect of Cambridge. I'd always wanted to visit Kettler's Yard, the art gallery, so I thought I could combine the two activities. I set off for Cambridge without too much of a plan, and the filming was pretty opportunistic. But I did also manage to buy a book about the gallery, which proved useful later. When I got home, I started trying to put the film together, but quickly realised I didn't have enough material. So I identified the gaps, worked out which shots weren't working, and set off again. Back at home, after the second trip, I built a storyline around the material I had, and recorded the commentary at home. There were a few gaps in the visual narrative, but I managed to fill these in with material I found online. A little to the north of Cambridge city centre, you can find a house that contains a highly personal collection of art and artefacts. It is known as Kettle's Yard, and it embodies the vision of one man, Jim Eade. Jim was the curator at the Tate Gallery in the 1920s and 30s, and he became friendly with many of the artists of the time. By the mid-1950s, he had amassed his own collection, and he began to think about how he could share this with the general public. For Jim, there was no dividing line between art and living, and he wanted to show how this idea could be put into practice. In 1956, Jim and his wife Helen started their project to convert 4 derelict cottages known as Kettle's Yard. By the end of the following year, they had moved in, installed their collection, and were ready to welcome their first visitors. Every afternoon, during term time, they held open house for university undergraduates. Jim hoped to expand the students' appreciation of modern art, but he was also keen to understand and learn from their response to it. In 1966, the house and its collection were handed over to Cambridge University. The Eades continued to live there, and Jim took the title of honorary curator. In 1970, a new purpose-built extension was opened, providing more space for the growing collection and an area in which music concerts could take place. In the past 40 years, there have been 4 more extensions, the latest opening in 2018. Now there is more space for contemporary art, a learning centre, a new cafe, and of course a shop. But at the heart of Kettle's Yard remains Jim Eade's idea of the enjoyment and appreciation of art in an informal domestic environment. The house is open to the public at no charge every day except Monday, and visitors come from far and wide. Jim would have approved. In 1964 he had written, "Do come as often as you like. The place is only alive when used."
Garden of the Dead is part of a series that aims to show snippets of Parisian life, history, and places which visitors may not have been to before. Challenge number 1 was to prune down my research to produce a bite-sized film that would say enough to whet people's appetite and capture something of the atmosphere of this wonderful cemetery. This meant sacrificing some important parts of the story. Challenge number 2, logistics. Paris is not easy to get around at the best of times. However, when the Yellow Jerseys decide to have a massive demonstration in the capital and the police lock down quite a few of the metro stations in the centre, then it's doubly hard. Next, people and noise. I must have filmed the opening speech to camera at least 20 times. When tourists don't come and walk straight into your frame, they're either shouting or laughing or speaking loudly right next to you. And I find that it's very hard to concentrate. To capture the beauty of the cemetery, I needed a shallow depth of field, and that meant using a fast lens. However, that gives you very little margin for error. A slight movement and you're out of focus. As you're on your own, you have to somehow estimate the focus using a substitute for you. So I would plonk my mini tripod and camera on a nearby tomb, focus on the stone or branch that was about the right distance away, hit record, and then go and stand in their place, hoping for the best. The cemetery really didn't want me to film the graves, so out of respect for the families still using some of the tombs, I blurred the names, with the exception of a few tombs like Chopin's. The film is dedicated to my father, who was a student in Paris, loved history, and would have visited Père Lachaise several times. I am in Le Père Lachaise cemetery, and behind me is the monument to the dead. A cemetery may seem a rather strange place to be on a visit to Paris, but this is the largest green space in the capital. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of very famous people buried here. Chopin, Edith Piaf, Géricault, Delacroix, even Jim Morrison. So it is well worth a visit. François de Lachaise, confessor to Louis XIV, once lived in these grounds. Although he gave his name to the necropolis, it was in fact under Napoleon that work began to create this vast garden for Paris's dead. Opened in 1804, Père Lachaise is twice the size of popular parks, such as the Luxembourg Gardens, though much smaller than the woods on the outskirts of the city. To attract people to the new site, it was decided to transfer here the remains of two absolute giants of 17th century culture, Molière and Jean de La Fontaine. The stunt worked, and today the cemetery is home to an estimated 1 million bodies. The bones and ashes of a further 2 million are interred in various locations, including the ossuary, located behind these statues. Beside the monument to the dead, this rather nice pathway, bringing you a little closer to the monument there itself, and you can see here that sort of grotto where there's a man and a woman holding each other by the shoulder and going into the unknown. Food for thought. Beyond Bartholomew's sculpture, a cobble street leads you into the heart of these magnificent gardens, past exquisite statues such as this little girl, urging France not to forget the sacrifice of those who fought and died for this country. Below her, sepulchres appear to blend discreetly into their natural environment. Dominique Denon, founder of modern Egyptology, holds a freshly cut flower in his hand. You'd expect to see crosses, but this cemetery in true Republican style is open to people of any creed or none. The designers wanted to create an English garden. Tall trees abound, offering welcome shade as visitors sweep in to discover the final resting place of this musical genius, an immigrant from Warsaw who spent the last 18 years of his life in Paris. Never very robust, Frédéric Chopin died at the age of 39. Above his tomb, Euterpe, symbol of music, weeps over her broken lyre. His friend, the artist Delacroix, is here also, a man whose work, like Victor Hugo's, defined the very spirit of the age. I suppose what I really like about this space is not the fact that it's beautifully manicured. It's not, as so many other cemeteries are in France. Some of the tombs are beautifully kept, but some are not. And I like the fact that it's not on one level, that you discover it bit by bit, that it's so full of atmosphere and so tranquil. It's a place where people can just come, reflect, take photos. It's really, really beautiful. And although you can hear the distant sound of the traffic, you are in a little haven of peace, relatively speaking.
So, can anyone be buried here? Well, not really. You either have to live in Paris or die here.
The area is huge, and locating the graves of famous people can take several hours. Fortunately, the cemetery is organised into divisions with numbers and names. Some tombs are monumental. This memorial harks back to a sombre episode in France's history. The capture of the French capital by Prussian troops sealed France's defeat. This country was to be invaded 3 times by Germany in the space of 70 years. Remembering the dead, those we have loved and lost, is vital to our sense of identity and history. The periphery wall displays a long list of those who are buried here. On this panel, the casualties of 1918, a particularly brutal year. The modern world hurtles past in a cacophony of sound, but here amongst the statues linger the souls of those who have truly blessed our lives. Maria Callas, Bizet, Piaf, universally precious or personally close to us, and not forgotten.
Wow, thank you. Excellent.
Well done. Congratulations, John.
Thank you.
I inherited this album of photographs from my parents. It records the trip they took to Switzerland in 1951. I always really liked the photographs, thought I could do something with them. Later, I discovered that I had a lot of ephemera that my mother had kept, including a full itinerary of the trip. Now I started to plan a film, but I needed a narrator. My niece sprang to mind. She'd studied drama at university, and I thought she might be the person for the job. Luckily, she agreed to come on board. I carefully planned the script so it would coordinate with the images that I had to show, and together we spent a day filming, doing cutaways, voiceovers, etc. The final piece of the jigsaw was finding the right music. Having trawled through the internet, I found a few pieces of music that seemed to sum up the atmosphere of the film.
This is the story of a holiday that took place nearly 70 years ago. This camera was used to record the trip, and the resulting photos are preserved in this album. It was the summer of 1951, the year of the Festival of Britain, and the last year of King George VI's reign. Our holidaymakers-to-be, Arthur and Peggy, had met and married soon after the Second World War. Both their lives had been disrupted by the war. Arthur had served in the Royal Signals, was taken prisoner by the Japanese in Singapore, and worked on the infamous Burma Railway. Peggy's job was a reserved occupation, and despite wishing to enlist, she'd been moved out of London to work in rural Hampshire. At the time of our story, Arthur was a quantity surveyor at his father's firm of builders, while Peggy was employed by a life assurance company in the City of London. These were happy times for them, but Britain was only just starting to recover from the hardships of the recent war. Many food items, including meat, cheese, sugar, butter, tea, were still rationed, and in London there was evidence of the Blitz on every corner. At that time, holidays abroad were only enjoyed by a select few. For most, a week or two at a British seaside resort was far more likely. But Arthur and Peggy longed for a complete change of scene. They worked their way through various travel brochures, calculated what they could afford, and eventually settled on a fortnight's trip to Switzerland. This typewritten itinerary provides us with their travel schedule. For the first week, they would stay in the lakeside resort of Lugano, near the Italian border, and for the second, in Interlaken, in the heart of the Bernese Oberland. At 1:30 on Friday the 8th of June, the adventure began at London's Victoria Station. First destination, Folkestone Harbour, and the cross-channel ferry to the continent. From Calais, the night train carried them across northern France to Switzerland. At lunchtime on Saturday, Arthur and Peggy checked in to the Esplanade Hotel in Lugano. The nearby Mont San Salvatore. In a letter to her parents, Peggy wrote, "We went up by funicular, which is very steep for the last part. On the top there is a restaurant with a sort of veranda over the most glorious views of the lakes and the snow-capped mountains in the distance. We sat and had orangeade, and they brought round the most gorgeous strawberry flan. We then climbed down a rough sort of path where few people go. It was very pretty, and the lizards kept shooting off the path in front of us. We passed the haymakers, some of them withered old women, brown as berries and carrying enormous loads on their backs. During the week, Arthur and Peggy visited some of the other little towns around Lake Lugano. And on the Friday, they crossed the border into Italy. They were clearly captivated by everything they saw. However, there was one aspect of their holiday they were less sure about. Peggy wrote, "Everything here is very Italian, as we are right on the border. There is masses of meat to eat, but we are not terribly struck with the cooking, which I think must be flavoured with garlic. Needless to say, we eat everything. Meat, garlic, spaghetti and all." The following Saturday, Arthur and Peggy moved on to Interlaken, in the heart of Switzerland, arriving at their hotel in the early evening. For the first couple of days, when not relaxing in the sun beside the Lido, they spent their time exploring nearby beauty spots and meeting some of the locals. Monday the 18th of June was Peggy's birthday. Arthur bought this card locally and posted it in the town so that his wife would receive it at the hotel on the day. As the week went on, Arthur and Peggy ventured further afield, upstream from the riverside village of Meringen, and suitably garbed in waterproofs. They followed a winding walkway through the Aar Gorge, a 200-metre deep ravine eroded into the limestone. Later the same day, they visited the spectacular Reichenbach Falls, made famous in fiction as the place where Sherlock Holmes and his arch-rival Moriarty tumbled to their deaths. But the high point of the week was a trip up to the Jungfraujoch, a saddle of land which sits at a height of nearly 3,500 metres, linking the peaks of the Jungfrau and the Monk. The excursion up from Interlaken involved 3 different trains, the last of these travelling through a tunnel inside the mountain. The journey ended at an underground station, carved into the rock beneath the Jungfraujoch. Having disembarked from the train, Arthur and Peggy made their way up through the adjoining hotel and out onto a balcony in bright sunshine. Climbing the path from the hotel up to the plateau, they would have savoured the clear air and marvelled at the spectacular views. On every side were peaks of over 4,000 metres, and to the north, the largest glacier in Europe stretched away for over 20 kilometres. This was a long way from the grey streets of North London. All too soon it was time to head back to the hotel. That evening they would have talked excitedly of everything they had seen and done. But it would also have dawned on them that the holiday was nearly over. Before long, they would be travelling back across Northern Europe on their last leg of their trip. By the evening of Sunday the 24th of June, they were back home. But this would always be a special holiday. In the letter to her parents, Peggy had written, "This is really a very wonderful holiday, and we do not regret for 1 second our decision to come. The trouble is, we shall want to come again." But they never did. In 1952, Peggy gave birth to twin sons, and a new chapter of their life began. 4 years later, Arthur and Peggy had a second set of twins, a girl and a boy. And that little boy is my father.
This film started as an experiment. I wanted to see if I could combine traditional stop-motion animation with further manipulation of the film in After Effects. So I started with a little cut-out fish. All I did was shoot 12 frames of it moving backwards and forwards like this in the light. I then strung that together as a loop and made it into a film 10 seconds long. So then I could take the film into After Effects and further manipulate the fish and drop in a background behind it. So having worked out the process, I then needed a story. The fish had been successful, so I used this as the basis. Having done the storyboard, I was in a position to shoot, combining live action, the stop frame animation, and a little joke at the end of the film.
The aim of the film was just to give a brief introduction into one of my hobbies. The biggest hurdle to overcome was just the lack of time I gave myself. I ended up with just less than a day to put the whole thing together. But fortunately, shooting and editing on a phone and tablet was actually reasonably straightforward. What I hadn't appreciated at the time, though, was how poorly the phone handled changing light conditions, as you will notice in the film. Also, needed a number of takes, as speaking on camera isn't something that comes naturally to me either. But otherwise, it was a little bit of fun to make, and so a short film deserves a short introduction. So here's geocaching. What is geocaching? Well, it's a real-world treasure hunt that uses GPS coordinates to locate hidden objects right throughout the world. Let me show you a few. It might take you to places like this and look like one of these. Or maybe here and look like one of those. Or maybe here. And find something like that. Possibly in weather like this. Or preferably on days like this. The terrain isn't always easy or dry, but it is always fun. All caches have a paper log to sign and an online equivalent, and at the end, smiley faces all round. And that's geocaching. See you soon.
Hello, my name is Anthony Gibson and I'm the producer and director of the winning music video Tyrant. Tyrant is the fourth track from the band's latest album entitled Palingenesis. The band, Embodiment, are a Bristol-based technical death metal band. They approached me in 2017 after they played live at the Bloodstock Festival, and they asked if I would like to make them a music video, to which I said yes. I sat down with the vocalist Harry from the band, and we've agreed that the way to go would be a more story-based music video. I would say the biggest hurdle for creating this music video was the logistics. The band were based in Bristol. I filmed them in Suffolk, and the cast and crew was a combination of 24 people. We shot this over 3 weekends and in 6 locations. So getting that all together was quite a challenge, but we got there in the end. I would really like to thank the whole club in allowing me to do this as a group project, and all of the individuals who helped me put this together. Their enthusiasm and their hard work to pull this off has made this music video happen. So I'm extremely grateful for every member. I hope you enjoy this music video, and if you would like to support the band, then you can purchase their latest album from Bandcamp. Thank you very much, and enjoy the music video.
Yeah, about there, I reckon. Stand back and have a look at that.
Where is the British Grand Prix?
Do you think so?
Yes, up there.
Rose, post.
Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't have my mic turned on. So, I'd just like to explain the handsome gentleman at the end of that video was me. And I was waffling to you. You couldn't hear a blooming word I said, but now you can. I don't think I've made it any better. Yes, please return to Zoom for the rest of the presentation. And all members, please remember next week is my VFX tutorial where I learn a brand new piece of software called Fusion. I've never used it before. Tomorrow I will download it and learn all about it and give you a tutorial on it next Tuesday. Okay, I'm about to pop a link into the chat to let you know where the Zoom meeting is again, or if you already have it in your email or you've still got the window open, please go back to Zoom because this transmission is now ending. Thank you. Good night.